It's up here. Okay. So let's first start talking about Spanish. Bunch here. Spanish, the French. For right now, we're going to skip the Dutch, and we're going to go to the Chesapeake and New England. Okay. I feel like if we can, as a group, talk about differences, similarities between these different groups, I think that can be very helpful. So let's first talk about goals. Okay. Goals of these groups. Okay. So let's talk about Spain. What are their goals? Why does Spain come to the New World? Resources. Gold, right? Okay. Good. What about the French? Why are they coming? Okay, trade. What are they going to trade for? Fur. Okay. What about the Chesapeake? Why do they come? Okay. Initially, it's going to be resources, but eventually, trade of tobacco. Okay. Maybe initially they want to find gold, right? So initially they wanted to find gold. They didn't find any, so then they turned to an agricultural economy. Why do people go to New England? Yeah, so the ideal Christian community. Okay. So if I'm looking at some similarities, I'm seeing Spanish, French, and the Chesapeake really similar about about why they're coming for economic reasons. And a difference here is we have New England coming to form some kind of Christian community. So we have some similarities and some differences here. Okay. Let's talk about, because we already are kind of talking about it. Economies. Okay. So Spain initially is going to find some gold, but that will not last them for decades in making money. So how do they make money later on after gold? Resources, how do they, what did you say? The encomienda system. Encomienda system, we find that they do some agriculture in the beginning, but mostly they're going to use Native Americans for labor. So remember, encomienda system is where the Spanish are going to control a piece of land, and they're going to take Native Americans from that area and make them work for that land. Okay. Yeah. How are the French going to make money? We already said that, right? The fur trade. Chesapeake is going to do tobacco. How is New England going to make money? Do you remember? Lumber, fish, meat. Right. Political. So Spain has only a few leaders. My marker's dying. So we have a few political leaders. Those are the people who are going to be in charge of the encomienda system. They're going to be the ones in political power. We could also talk about the casta system. Okay. It's also a social. But if you're on the top of the casta system, then you have the most political power too. Okay. For the French, we didn't really talk too much about the French political power because remember, because so few people are there, they're not really interested in that. So it's mostly whatever the king says, king rules. It's also the same for Spanish. The Chesapeake and New England are a little different. They are more focused on political changes because so many citizens are coming. So what is in the Chesapeake? What is the first legislature, the first organization that creates laws in the colonies? What's that called? House of Burgesses. House of Burgesses. So the House of Burgesses is supposed to be an organization designed to write laws for the colony. If you had to look at the demographics of how would you describe the people who have power in this group? They're the rich landowners, right? Okay, the rich landowners. And then for New England, what kind of political systems do we have there? We have town meetings, where there's a little bit more of exchange of ideas between those who have more economic power and those who don't have a lot of money. Okay, it's a little bit more spread out. Right? You could talk about the Mayflower Compact. Where New England is saying, hey, once we get onto our colony, we are going to create our own system of government and create our own laws, and we're going to agree to that. We see in the Chesapeake, New England, much more advanced political systems than we do with Spain. So like in Spain, there's very few Spanish citizens that come to colonize the colony. Because of that, we don't have things like the House of Burgesses and town meetings. Because there's a lot of people coming to the English colonies, they create these political systems to rule the people. Let's go with relations with natives. Okay, what is the Spanish relationship with Native Americans? Okay, not great. Why? Okay, you can talk about the encomienda system. What else can you talk about? Try to convert, forced conversions. Okay, so we have Spanish making them, forcing them to work, forcing them to convert. Not a great relationship. What about the French? Okay, pretty good relationship. Why? The trade. So better relations, my marker's dying, because they depend on them for trade. They depend on Native Americans for trade. So if they're going to have a good relationship with them, they need to, or they're going to trade with them, they're going to have a better relationship. What about the Chesapeake? What's their relationship like? Bad. Okay. Why? What's an example of that? How do they make money? Tobacco. Tobacco requires a lot of labor. It also requires a lot of land. And so as they're going to expand into the frontier, that means they're taking land away from Native Americans. And so conflict over land. Do people in the Chesapeake want to convert Native Americans to Christianity? No, they don't really talk about that at all. They don't really care. Okay. Do we have over here in the Spanish, we have intermarriages. Does that happen in the Chesapeake? No, it's very separate. What about in New England? Going to be pretty similar, right? We have conflict over land. Do you think of an example of conflict over land? What's one of them that was in an activity? Not really. Yeah, King Philip's War or Metacom's War. Okay. Metacom's War. We don't see intermarriage here in New England either. However, we do see a little bit of conversion in the form of what are called praying towns. These are supposed to be communities that Native Americans can come to and learn about Christianity. They're not forced to convert, but they are able to, or I guess they're not forcing Native Americans to convert like the Spanish were, but it is a kind of sub goal of theirs. Remember, they want to be the ideal Christian community, not just to other Europeans, but also to the Native Americans as well. Trying to think of anything else. I gotta go on. How about who are the demographics? Okay, the demographics. Who is coming to these colonies? So for the Spanish, is it a lot of people, few people? Who are the people coming to the Spanish colonies? It's only a few people. Yeah, usually it's richer people starting their own land there. What about the French? You think of that? Yeah, very few again. Some people who are like trade merchants. We talked a little bit about Jesuit missionaries. So we said here they have better relationships. They depend on Native Americans for trade. There is some kind of effort to reach out to Native Americans, but nowhere near the forced conversions or even praying towns. They're going to go and like talk about it, and not very many Native Americans are going to be receptive to it. So, yeah. Chesapeake, how would you describe those people coming? Most of the people, mostly single, white, or men. Okay, and they're going to come over and participate in what kind of system? What kind of work are they doing? Okay, indentured servants. That's going to be the highest category of people. Okay, what about New England? Who's coming here? Families, whole communities. And so because of that, we see a lot of differences in what the societies eventually become, right? Because the Chesapeake has very few women in it, women have less like economic power. In New England, because there's more women, women will have property rights. Now, it's nowhere near property rights of women today, because remember when women would get married, women would lose their property rights to the husband. However, in the Chesapeake, women had no property rights. So there's a difference here in what the society becomes because of who even starts off there. Also, the population in New England is going to get a lot higher than in the Chesapeake. Also, because of so many families, many families will demand their communities to have school. Public school for that town. Whereas because there's so few women and so few children, the Chesapeake is not going to have like really any public schooling for. Um, where they are, good one. Where is Spain taking over? Okay, yeah, Mexico. Okay, present day Mexico. France is in where? Canada. And you can even say like later on they're further west, so in places like Wisconsin, Ohio, down all the way to New Orleans. Where is the Chesapeake located? Virginia, Maryland. New England. Massachusetts area. That's supposed to be MD, not MO. Sorry, MD for Maryland. Okay. Any other questions or things that we should talk about? Okay. We'll stop here with this. Is there anything else from your study guide? You're like, Mr. Barth, we didn't talk about this, or can we talk about that? What's that? Okay. You can skip that one. So that's all this. Oh, there is one thing that I think is on your study guide that I do want to mention. Here, I have to mention one thing that's not in your study guide that I want you to add to your study guide. Okay. So our last thing. This is important because there's a question on the multiple choice test about it. Okay, ready? Called the printing revolution. Is it on your study guide? Yeah. What page is it on? Oh, I see. No. Okay, yeah. I don't think any class took notes on it. So let me tell you it now. Okay. And then in class, remind me to tell each class so people weren't. Okay. Printing revolution. Printing revolution is using printing presses to spread ideas through more printing of books. And this seems like, yeah, duh, that's what books do. And we've seen the printing press before this time, but for the colonies, this is going to transform their societies by the spreading of ideas. What are examples of some ideas that came from Europe and made it to the colonies that we talked about in class last time? Well, the Bible's already going to be there. What are new ideas that are going to come to the colonies from Europe? Enlightenment ideas. Okay, natural rights. So these are all different ideas that are coming to the colonies from Europe. Okay. Any questions before I turn off the video? Okay. What about Benjamin Franklin?